So India is a set of diverse travelers. India is a set of travelers where there is no one size fits all, but I often like to term the Indian market as a market where if a service provider is able to provide value for money service, the Indian traveler will keep coming to you again and again and again.
Welcome to the Travel People podcast, where we explore the people, the stories, and the trends shaping global travel. My name is Dylan, and I'm your host for this show, and I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Uma, aka the Queen of Diamonds. So basically, we're talking about India. It's the hot topic currently that's going on in all the travel podcast shows, articles. I read like 2 articles a week about India and how it's growing. It's one of the most dynamic markets in the world growing. Uma, did you know that India's international departures have already surpassed 2019 levels, and their outbound travel spending is growing at an impressive 17% annually, which is outpacing the US, which is just at 6%. That's crazy, right?
It is, but it's a big country.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing. It's a big country and there's huge potential for growth, right? So the outbound trips per capita in India are just 2% compared to 113% from Western Europe and 57% from North America. So huge amount of growth. And that's why this is going to be the main topic that we're going to explore today. And the 2 guests that we thought we would bring on to the show, who we think are the experts on India, it's Neil and Sunila Patil from Vina World. So hi guys, how you doing?
Hi, thank you so much for having us, Dylan and Uma. We are excited to be on this episode.
Hi Dylan, hi Uma. Well, I met you recently and I'm so happy. And it's great to meet again on a different platform. So, yeah, great that you guys are starting this.
Thank you, and thank you for being the reason that we're starting this. You are our inspiration, so credit goes to you.
So just to introduce how we know each other, I mean, Uma, do you want to just sort of, the years of relationship that we've got with these guys? I mean, why don't you start from the beginning? Yeah.
So I think we've known each other for more than 23 years, and I'd like to say the best 23 years of my life. And I also have to say that if it wasn't for Neil, Sunila, Veena and Sudhir, I don't think we would have the status in the Indian market that we do now. So thank you very much. But not only for supporting us, for being our family, but also for being amazing partners. So yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's
I would
cool.
say the same from our side. So thank
Well,
you for being there, both of you.
how old were you 23 years ago, Neil?
Like 7 or something.
Yes. And you're not allowed to ask me that question. Neither
Yeah,
are you
and
allowed to ask
even me.
Sunila that
No.
question.
I'm not
Okay,
going to ask
so
anybody
Better
else.
not.
That's it. I stop at Neil. I stop at Neil only. Yeah. All right. Cool. All right. Brilliant. So, Vina, tell us a little bit about Vina World. I mean, what do you guys do?
So, as you know, we've been working really closely with all of you, and our aim is to really, if I had to put it in one sentence, I'll go with our vision statement, which is to offer incredible holiday experiences. And I think that's what we really aim to do, be it within India, outside India, be it for people who are visiting from India all around the world, or for those who are looking for a holiday in India from all around the world. So we have another statement, Dylan, and that goes that, we are for every family and everyone in the family. So from families, multi-generational families, to solo travelers, to only women travelers, to senior citizens, to just kids and young families and friends and anybody who's really looking for a great holiday. We have our tour managers who take care of them all across the world, and really happy that we offer tours and holidays to all the 7 continents. And in fact, this year we did 60 passengers to Antarctica on 3 different cruises, so that was been some kind of an achievement for us. We're very happy about that, and I think Europe is one of the most important destinations, not only for our travelers, also for us, and we're so happy to have you as partners out there.
Dylan, on our podcast, we ask everyone, each guest, this question. So let me ask the both of you: how many countries have you guys done? Because
What,
Sunila's
travel
done
to?
some,
Yeah.
yeah, like How many countries have
Yeah.
you traveled to? Yeah,
Have you
Wow.
visited?
do
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have a count?
Not well, for personally not as many as you guys do. But I mean, Uma, what are how many? You tell me how many, Uma. Can you say off the top of your head?
Probably about 18.
Oh
18.
wow.
Yeah, I have
Okay.
been around for a long time, right? So yeah.
I'm not as much. I'm not as much. I'm probably like about, I don't know, maybe 12 to 15. Not many.
Okay.
Not many at all. I've still got a long, can you believe it? I've never been to the States.
Oh wow.
I know I've been
That's
to
like,
Canada, but I've never been to the States. I mean, that's crazy, right? So I need to go to the States. I'm always thinking of I need to do a sales trip or we need to go to the States, but we always end up flying east. We don't like flying west. So we always end up in India.
Yeah,
So
because
that's
yeah.
Sunila and Neil are not in the West, right? They're in India, so that's why we go there.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
you
yeah.
need to come here and then all of us can fly from
Can
here.
go together. That's a good
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So Neil, so let's discuss sort of the Indian traveler's profile, right? So um, let's understanding, the typical Indian traveler visiting Europe. What kind of demographics do you commonly see, and sort of what motivates them to travel to Europe? Sort of their aspirations of coming to Europe. Can you give us a bit of insights about that?
I'm often asked this question, and I often tell people that people outside of India
Yeah,
mistake India to be, yes, it is one country, but
yeah,
tend to have one image of the Indian traveler. But if you really think about us, we are probably the most populated country in the world. We have thousands of travelers traveling to Europe, not only with Veena World, but from all across India. But if I were to just tell you that what is the Indian traveler in one sentence, it's very difficult because there are vegetarians who eat egg, there are non-vegetarians who don't eat pork and beef, there are non-vegetarians who eat only non-veg on a Monday and a Wednesday. There are people who like cultural experiences, there are people who like history. There are people who want to wake up at 6 and leave the hotel and come back to the hotel at 10 p.m.
yeah,
So India is a set of diverse travelers.
yeah,
India is a set of travelers where there is no one size fits all,
yeah,
but I often like to term the Indian market as a market where if a service provider is able to provide value for money service, the Indian traveler will keep coming to you again and again and again. And we have seen that at Veena World today. We are doing about 100,000 travelers a year,
yeah,
and of that, about 15,000 are traveling to Europe. But all 15,000 are very different,
yeah,
and it becomes a challenge for us. And of course, you service the Indian market a lot. You also know that. Uh, the Indian traveler has evolved. The Indian traveler is different to what the Indian traveler was 15 years ago. But
yeah.
still, every now and then you will have surprises. And every day in the travel industry, you learn, right? You create a new profile for the Indian traveler.
Yeah, we've been in India for, I mean, Uma, how many years now? We've been servicing that
About
market?
23,
Okay,
roughly.
23. Well, as long as we've known Sunila and
Yeah,
Veena
yeah,
and yeah,
yeah,
yeah, okay.
yeah.
And so Uma, I mean, look, first-hand experience, someone, who's in Europe, what do you think from your perspective, how's the Indian traveler changed from, 23 years ago to today?
I think they have more knowledge now than they did 23 years ago. I think they're more hands-on onto what they would like to see, where they would like to go. Whereas when we first started working together, the programs were curated and they followed those programs.
Yeah, yeah,
I also think that there's a bit of a shift because Indian travelers are very focused on food. It's a big
yeah,
element for them. And I think we've seen that shift as well. 23 years ago, people only wanted Indian food, which was very difficult to get in Europe. So, and that time they used to have like kitchen caravans, etc., just to be able to cater. But over the years, I've seen that because there was such a big demand for Indian food all over Europe, we now have restaurants everywhere. Having said that now, even with Veena World, everybody doesn't want Indian food anymore now. So every second day or every third
yeah,
day, we have to give them something that's local.
yeah.
I think, yeah, so those are the main changes that I've seen.
I wanted to actually go into another part of actually how the Indian travelers, how do they travel, right? So we've seen that family travel is a dominant trend, like, right? And also, if I'm reading statistics, and studies, it's like, over 60% of Indian travelers prefer to travel in groups. So, and that's something that we've built both of our businesses together, right? It's group travel. Is that the dominant thing for you guys as well in Vina?
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
of course, there are different modes of travel, like you said, and people do take
Yeah.
up individual holidays. Even under that, there is travel by train, there is travel by private cars, there is travel by self-driving the cars, taking the car and driving yourself. But even if you consider all of that, of course, group travel is something that has always been popular and is definitely the majority of what we do, because I think we bring a very unique perspective when we do that. And of course, we have the tour manager who, in Hindi, like we say, he's always the person who says, "Main hoon na," which means I am there for you.
Yeah.
Whenever you need a helping hand, whenever you need anything, and you don't have to worry or think about anything. You just have to choose which of the different tours can I take, and then
Yeah.
leave everything else to us, and then they can travel really completely hassle free with complete peace of mind, that you don't have to worry about what am I going to do today. And honestly, I've seen that there are two different things. You can take
Yeah.
a holiday and you can be on a tour, because when you're on a holiday you don't really end up visiting or seeing a lot of the things that the place has to offer. So if you really want to experience everything that the country or the destination can offer, then group tours do become a very important part of what to do, what to see. And not just that, we've even had a few people who come in because they want the company. They want the company of
Yeah.
fellow travelers. There was a couple who came in actually from UAE, and they booked like 3 or 4 tours together, and they said, you know what, why should just the both of us travel? We'll end up fighting all the time. It's
Yeah.
nicer when we have fellow companions and we
Yeah.
have your tour manager and everything's taken care of. So it's so much easier, so much nicer. And we like traveling with fellow passengers, like minded people. It just adds to the whole experience. So definitely, group travel is something that is important,
Okay.
and I think will continue to be important.
Okay, cool. I mean, well, Uma mentioned earlier, what I just wanted to go on to the next bit was, well, Uma mentioned about how the travelers have changed from since 23 years ago. Now, I wanted to ask you guys, like millennials and Gen Z right now account for a significant segment of outbound travel. So, h- do their preferences differ from older generations, or have you seen a change in what, the younger generations are asking for now?
I would say that, of course, there is a big change. Every
Yeah,
generation is different, but it's also not that every generation is moving more online as compared to the generation previously. So, what we
yeah,
have seen is that the newer generation wants everything on the phone, but is also very impatient. That's where travel agents like us come in. Now, if you
yeah,
really think about it, if you travel on a customized holiday or a tailor-made holiday with your friends and family, there's always invariably one person who's making decisions. Where should I eat?
yeah,
When am I meeting the next guide? What time is the transfer coming tomorrow?
yeah, yeah.
We are seeing more and more people want high quality assisted service that could be on a group tour or a customized holiday. And that is not only with the older generation, but the newer generation as well.
Yeah.
And that's where we have initiatives that we've brought in, like, you can take a customized holiday with a tour manager where it's just the four of us friends going together, but no one has the headache of planning or anything like that. So the generational shift we are seeing where people want everything at their fingertips. And if you are able to create a transparent picture, a picture
Yeah.
that tells the true story, then you will really succeed in the long run, is what we have seen. But that being said, gone are the days where you are creating brochures at retail offices and all of that. A hybrid model is something that we have seen work where you have offline offices, but at the same time, you have a huge online presence. And we've done that at Vina World. And I guess since the pandemic, we've upped our digital game, we've upped our tech
Yeah.
game, and that seems to have helped us because we have already crossed 2019 numbers, and it seems like the sky is the limit just because even if we are doing 100,000 travelers a year, that's
Yeah.
still a very small drop in the ocean that is India.
So I just want to add a point here, Dylan, that with the millennials and Gen Z humor also, what we've seen is that the changes or the preferences in food are definitely something that is noticeable.
Yeah.
And they are exposed, they have exposure to so many of the word foods now. A lot of the Gen Z and millennials will not eat Indian food at home all the time, every day. And that's why even on tour, they don't expect the same food. So there's a definite shift in that, and they would love to try new things. I think that they love to experiment, so they love to do different things, try different cuisines. If not the whole meal, at least a part of the meal can be a little different, so that is definitely something. And they are also a little more adventurous in nature, so not so much in Europe. We've seen it in the other places in the world, but they really love to take part at least in soft adventure, if not hardcore adventure. So that's just something I would like to add.
Well, actually, I had a question because Neil, you said that a lot of focus was shifted online, and I just wanted to know: do Indian clients book online?
Well, definitely they do. But at the same time, Indian clients will book online something that is just piecemeal. So they'll book their flights, they'll book their hotels, they'll book their sightseeing. But hardly will you find companies offering everything together. I'm not saying that there aren't companies that are offering packages, but the packages that are being offered, it's not a transparent package whole, like all the way through, right? So what we do at Vina World is we try to create an all-inclusive tour for you, an all-inclusive package, where we like to say that once you're on holiday, you should not have to pay for anything but shopping, right? So a large chunk of India's population books online, looks for information online, and discoverability of where to go, whom to go with, and when to go does happen online. But when it comes to making the purchase decision, just because the Indian travel market is so big, there is a place for boutique travel agents who don't have an online presence. There is a place for us who have, like, a company like us who has a hybrid model of online plus offline. Plus, there is a place for the OTAs, that are the online travel agents, where everyone can thrive, everyone can grow. And as the Indian market keeps growing, it's just that if you provide great service, you'll really do well.
To add to it, Uma, what we've seen happening also is that it's not completely online. So they still like to talk to travel agents. They still like to call. They may not visit office. They may not. And in fact, now we've even started doing some, calls on Zoom or like video calls with the guests who want to travel. So they get all the information on email, on call. They speak to us. They like to have a touch point, and they may make the payment online, so they may never really visit you, though a lot of people do like to visit offices even today.
Yeah.
But there is still that growing chunk of people who will not visit office, but they still want a touch point. They still want to know
Okay.
that the company exists. They want the trust, and then they will pay online. So that's also something we've seen happening.
Well, that's a big thing, right? In India, I think trust is a huge thing to do. Any transaction in India, that's what I've seen anyway. Anytime I go back to India, come back to my family, and I go to their homes and whatever it is, they always want. I always see that they need trust to transact, and trust is through we need to know the person, or I need to see the person, who exists. They don't like to
Yeah.
just do everything 100% online. But I read some really fascinating statistics once. It was like out of the 1.4 billion people, only 200 million people purchase goods from their mobile phones. So there is a huge amount of the population that needs to actually come and what needs to transition onto this online purchasing mode. So there's a lot of runway for India for growth there. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is what Indian travelers want. So I'm going to hand this over to the Queen of Diamonds actually to take this section away.
So, Sunila, this one's for you.
Yes,
What
ma'am.
are the most popular destinations in Europe for the Indian traveler? What are
In
the,
Europe. Okay.
yeah, in Europe, yeah.
So, yeah, Uma, so I think, as you know, Switzerland kind of tops the list, and rightly so for many years because, yes, the tourism boards are very active and they do promote the destination, but overall, as a whole, I would say there has been a fascination and an obsession with snow-clad mountains, beautiful lakes, beautiful landscapes, and the Bollywood movies have always helped to promote that quite a bit. We've had people even coming on tours to dress up like the Bollywood stars and take their photos. The train scene from some of the movies. There are some iconic scenes and other things from movies which are often something that appeals to people. So I would say it's not just a country, but also certain things that appeal to people more, like, standing in the train and catching a running train as shown in the movies. Of course, not that we suggest people do that, but on a stationary train, you can take a photograph and then, pose in the same way or something like that. So the trends do change quite a bit. When I say Switzerland, of course, people like Paris, then certain cities also get much more popularity than the country as a whole. So people like to tick off certain cities out there. But when I say that, I think what I want to say here, Uma, is that you have the first time traveler and then you have the evolved traveler. So things do change. When you come in first time, you want to tick off all the, Italy, France, Switzerland, Austria, Spain. These are some of the countries, Germany. These are like majorly Western Europe. That is what people want to tick off. They want to come in, they want to see all the iconic sites that they've seen in different movies. Now, we used to have, some challenges here, because if you've seen some movies, the filmmakers weren't always portraying the true country, right? So they would say this is Italy, but it was actually shot in Budapest. And when people are coming to Italy, they say, "Where is that bridge?" And I say, "Well, you have to come to Budapest for that, if you want to see the bridge." So there have been some funny incidences like that as well. The second time traveler then comes in and wants to do maybe Scandinavia, and Northern Lights, of course, this year being one of the years where you could see it the most, is very, very popular right now. And I think it will be for a few years going ahead. The whole aspect of Midnight Sun and Northern Lights, again, that's something that appeals to people. So Scandinavia tops the list there. And then Game of Thrones and the other, series like that help put Croatia on the map too. And when people discovered that I can keep going back to Europe again and again and discover all these beautiful countries, I think the list just got longer. That we have seen with Vinaward itself that people today are doing 10 tours to Europe. They are not just doing one tour and then saying, "I'll move on to the next continent." They are actually coming back again and again. And very often, they would do like a multi-country tour first and then come in and say, "Okay, let me do Switzerland in, or maybe 3 countries together, or do a mono country and discover all of it, like all of Spain or all of Switzerland or all of Italy." And that's something we've seen. Also, recently, another trend we've noticed is that, after ticking off most of the countries there, they are also looking for different kinds of combinations. And to really cater to that, even that's kind of kept us on our toes as well, because then we keep thinking that let's bring out different combinations. So, like the latest one that we did with you guys was Sicily, but that was with Malta and
Malta.
Tunisia. So, which was a very different take on what you can do with Europe as well. So, you have Mediterranean Europe, you have Greece, and to make it easy for people, because there's so many countries, we kind of like to tell them that, think of Europe as Western Europe, come in and do that, then maybe move on to Mediterranean Europe, do Greece, Italy, Spain, all of those countries, then move on to Central Europe and East Europe. So you could look at Croatia, Budapest and Slovenia, Slovakia, and all of those. And then, of course, Scandinavia with all its beauty, and Finland. So I think it also depends on when they want to travel. Is there are some unique phenomenon happening at that time, or other festivals or other things happening. So if you think of it, I think people today have a bucket list for Europe, not just the whole world, but even within Europe, that I want to tick off this first and that first. And what we've seen at Vina World is that everything from a single country, which is about, say, a 5 or 6 day tour, to a multi country tour for up to 30 days or 31 days also works. So, for each person, if you can offer different things, then the destinations are also on their mind. There's some people who want to say, I have one holiday, let me try and do as much as possible. But there are others who say, I will go at least 10 to 15 times, let me take each country at a time. So that's where the destinations are.
That's amazing
And
insight.
Iceland is another one that has recently really caught everyone's imagination.
Neil, this one's for you because you're the foodie amongst us, right? Do you think food influences where Indian travelers go? Do you think having availability of Indian food or vegetarian food, it's important?
So, I think about 5 to 7 years ago, vegetarian food in Europe was a big problem.
Yeah.
But over the last 3 years, I've done multiple trips, went to Switzerland once, did Italy, did Basque Country in Spain, did the southwestern region of France. And my wife
Yeah.
Heta is vegetarian and has egg, right? And she doesn't have a problem anymore. Of course, Basque Country was a problem where she was just on patatas bravas and uh, the peppers, but otherwise it was pretty easy. But to be honest, the Indian market still doesn't know enough about the diversity of food that you get in Europe,
Yeah.
as good as how they know about what you can see in Spain, what you can see in Italy, what you can see in Switzerland. For everyone, it is a very binary thing where, okay, you go to Italy, there is pizza and pasta. You go to Switzerland, you go for chocolate and cheese. You go to France, you go for the croissant and the pain au chocolat. But out of that, there is just so much variety in Europe alone
Yeah.
that the Indian market still doesn't know of it. And we try to bring it to the front through our content exercises in India. But as much as you know about the attractions, food is a big question mark. And that is one of the primary reasons that people still want to go back to Indian food, because they are uncertain that if I'm in Zermatt, will I really get good food? And I was on a panel discussion a couple of days ago, and one of my fellow travel agents, they were just like, when you talk about vegetarian food, we don't talk about just boiled carrots with pea puree and sprinkled with like just some honey lemon
Yeah.
sauce, right? We are talking about variety in Indian food. So
Hmm.
if you're telling us that you are a service provider in Europe and you're catering to the Indian market, then you should have five different things that are vegetarian or vegetarian friendly on your menu than just having one. Because
Yeah.
the Indian market likes choice. I won't have pizza every day. I won't have
Yeah.
just grilled chicken every day. So if you want to cater to the Indian market, it's very important to come to India to understand what an Indian restaurant menu is like. And if you just visit three or four of the great restaurants in Mumbai, you come to know what an Indian menu really should be. So food is great in Europe, but I would say of the 15,000 people traveling with Vina World every year to Europe, maybe 1% know of that. They don't even know.
Yeah.
And unless our tour managers tell them, you just think that, okay, there's only this one thing that you get in a particular country, which is not the case, right? You have traveled across
No,
Europe
yeah, absolutely
and the food
not.
is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, but I was reading somewhere that when so it was a list of all the countries, all the travelers from all over the world, and what do they when they're choosing a destination to travel to, what's priority for them? And for Indians, the Indian travelers, it was 71% was based on food. But it's understandable as well because we don't get good Indian food outside of India. You know, even I complain being an Indian. I always tell Uma we don't get like whenever we go to eat somewhere and like, shall we go Indian? Well, it's not as good as India. It's like, you know, we're going a step down. And I think it's just, I don't think it's the chefs or anything like that. I just think it's the weather, the climate. I think it's the ingredients, right? The ingredients grown in India and consumed in India taste far better than they do outside of India. So, yeah, the food is like me. You need to stay in the hot country in India to enjoy it, right? So, but yeah, Uma and I, whenever we come to visit you guys, we're always asking you guys for restaurants, right, around Mumbai, and we've been to some really. We've seen the food scene change in India
Yeah.
massively, right? I mean, from really going from like Indian food, like there's a lot of a lot of Japanese food coming in at the moment, if I'm not wrong to
Yeah.
say, right? Yeah,
Yeah, it's
a lot of
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Japanese
Yeah.
restaurants opening up, and fantastic with an Indian twist to it. I mean, it tastes brilliant. I mean, the variety of vegetarian dishes that you get. I mean, Uma's vegetarian, right? So it's great for you every time you go there. So really, the next thing that I want to ask you guys is the practical side of really catering to the Indian travelers, right? Like, so what are some of the essential services or amenities they look for when traveling to Europe? sort of what on the checklist of what do we need to provide and let's say surprise and delight, not even surprise, let's say delight our Indian passengers. I mean, Neil, if you want to let us know, give us a quick checklist.
Yeah, so looking at what is needed, I think a lot of that work, Dylan, honestly, is something that you and I have to do together. So between our companies is where if we plan for it properly,
Yeah,
the delivery is always then done to
yeah,
the end customer or the guest, as we call them, properly, because they don't really specifically look for those things, but a lot of things are between the lines, right? So right
yeah,
from if you take all the components of a tour, I mean, the first thing, of course, is the itinerary and the product.
mm,
So if we plan that properly itself, saying that we aren't doing too much of backtracking, there isn't too much time wasted just in traveling from one place to
yeah,
the other, but you're actually seeing and doing things, or you're
yeah,
not like going ahead and then coming back and then going ahead again, because as you're aware, most of these itineraries are pretty tight. You want to save as much time as you
yeah,
can and enjoy the tour in total. So the first thing itself is product planning and the itinerary, and I think that's where when we talk with you guys and you come back to us saying this is possible, this is not possible, this is too long, the working hours, for example, for driving hours in Europe is something that may make this day difficult, then we have to adjust the itineraries and adjust the programs to make sure that it works really well. So going ahead from the itineraries, it's the accommodation. So whatever we promise, it has to be the same. If we tell people we don't want to make any false promises, but we want to ensure that they have a comfortable stay. So very often, like one of the things we've seen, and I think that's probably a little unsolved, but we'll see how Europe responds, is that global warming everywhere, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
by end of May itself, you start feeling the heat. But
Right.
very
yeah.
often in a lot of places, they say it's not yet official summer and they don't put on the ACs. This used to be some problems, and I still see that
It's a bit
happening
strange,
elsewhere.
very
Right.
strange.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so if those things are small things are taken care of, then people would be really much more comfortable, because the
yeah,
concept is foreign to them. That what do you mean by summer hasn't started officially and you can't,
yeah. Can't
have
feel the
other
heat.
things? So, yeah, like it's
But
hot. So it's
but
summer.
India, but when we come to India, air conditioning is just everywhere, right?
Correct. Correct.
It's everywhere. It's a normal thing, right? So
Yeah.
when Indian travelers come to Europe, and again, like you're saying, like we don't
Yeah.
officially say it's summer, but you can
Yeah.
feel the
Yeah.
heat. It's like,
Yeah.
and then the hotel gives a fan. I mean, it's a bit annoying for the customer, and it's not good to have a fan, especially when it's like 38, 35 degrees.
Yeah.
But yeah,
True.
sorry, yeah,
So they look for good hotels, of course, hospitality. See, Indians are a little spoiled. You have to understand, like Neil said, we are almost like many different countries living together with different language, different. So the expectations are different. It does vary depending from where they come. But I think one thing is common, and one thing that everyone expects is to feel welcome. And I
Yeah.
think
yeah,
if all the service providers can do that, then it makes for a
yeah,
great holiday. So, and that goes right from the coach captain to the person who's checking them in, to the person at the breakfast table, to the restaurant owner, to the attraction. And we've seen that a lot of the attractions in themselves have made special arrangements.
Yeah.
They have special welcomes, or they just to see an instruction in Hindi, it just makes you feel good. Of course, if you think of Gen Z and millennials, I doubt how many of them can actually read Hindi today. But even if they don't, when you go up on Mount Titlis, for example, and you see Mount Titlis pe aapka swagat hai, which means welcome to Mount Titlis, you feel good. So it's about
Yeah.
feeling hospitable, feeling warm, feeling
yeah,
welcome. And I think that really makes the whole holiday feel good. We've had people come back to us and write feedback where they have even mentioned the coach captain's name and said he was such an amazing person. He came
yeah,
from this country. He told us so many stories. The entire
yeah,
journey was so fabulous. And they're not even thinking of the coach at that point. That was it big.
yeah,
Of course, coaches in Europe are good. So that's a given. But having this feedback with the names of the coach drivers really means that yes, it was a
yeah,
great holiday. So these are the different things that people would look for, because they in their image they've been dreaming, like Europe is an aspirational holiday for most people.
Yeah.
It is a
yeah,
dream destination. So they definitely expect things to work, things to run smoothly, and things to be amazing and wonderful and everything that they've dreamt of. So when each and every component, right from a good meal to a good hotel to a good coach to amazing sites to discover, and all of that comes together, then yeah, all the components are taken care of. And I think that's what people expect to be felt, to feel welcome.
What you've described, Sunila, I think this is a general expectation in the service industry that every service provider should be providing, right? Is being hospitable, being, welcoming your guests, whether they're from, Timbuktu or Canada or India or China or wherever it could be, Australia, doesn't matter, right? But that, I think, in the service industries, honestly, I mean, there is a huge scale, and I think that's what we face as operators behind the curtains. We face the problem when there are certain people, that don't give this type of service, right? There are arguments or there are misunderstandings and things like that. One person standing in their ground and the other person standing, and there are all these clashes, right? And that's, I feel sometimes, Uma, we're resolving problems between two human beings versus actually what's actually wrong. There's nothing actually wrong, but it's just two people just arguing, right?
Isn't that true about everything,
It
Dylan?
happens.
And
It happens.
Yeah.
It
just to
happens.
go
Yeah.
back to my point, I forgot to mention one thing. I was saying that Indians
Yeah.
are spoiled, and if you
Yeah.
see the level of hospitality and service
Yeah.
in India,
Yeah.
even in a
Yeah.
three-star hotel, it
Yeah.
is people. I think it's in our blood to make people feel hospitable, and so the expectation is way high up. So
Yeah.
you know what you're dealing with when you're dealing with Indian customers and travelers. So everywhere they go, they expect things to be like back home. And very often, it's also not always about not being hospitable. Sometimes it's a culture.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
it's lack of manpower. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's different things. So it's
Yeah.
that little bit of explanation from both sides. I think that goes a long way.
Yeah, it is. There is a lot of manpower in India. Service is great. We feel it's,
Yeah.
there's always somebody looking after something for you. There's, you can get things done any time of the day in India, correct? Anytime. So like this whole concept when people come to Europe and Europe shuts down at a certain time, it's a bit sort of like, wow, how does that happen? Because back home it's not like that, right? So we explain that to everybody that we sort of meet. Like India is like that. So, we can't be like that in Europe, but we have to try to meet expectations or try to communicate better, right?
Yeah, can I just say, I think this is where the Vina World tour managers make such a difference because they
Yeah.
set the expectations at the beginning of the tour. And that's why people are not disappointed. And we see it. We see the operations team handling it because they understand the expectations are set. And once you tell somebody this is what you're going to get, then it's not a surprise when you do get it. So, yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next up, I actually wanted to just finish up. We're not going to take too much of your time now. Just really, what are the emerging trends coming out of India? I know we touched upon them a bit earlier on with sort of Gen Z and millennials and their sort of behaviors on how they consume travel. But really, let's talk about, are there any sort of niche products? What about sustainability? Is this something that's sort of,
Yeah, because
prevalent
that's
in mind? Yeah. I mean, again, there's one question I'd like to ask you, Neil, is do you think the new generation is very pro reducing their carbon footprint whilst traveling around, or is this something that they're not thinking about at the moment?
So I'll respond to your question in two parts. I'll talk about new trends coming in first, and then we'll talk about sustainability and responsible tourism.
Yeah.
Talking about new trends, if you go back to the start of the episode, I asked you a question, how many countries have you been to?
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, in the Indian market, people are asking themselves how many countries have they been to, how many states of India they have visited. So it's
Yeah.
more of a bucket list thing that I want to visit as many countries as possible, as many places as possible. I think COVID played a huge role in making everyone realize that it's very important to get out. It's very
Yeah.
important for you to travel with your loved ones because life is unpredictable, right? So we have seen people often now start spending more on travel. I often tell people that the real competition that we have as Vina World is not other travel companies, but it's the automobile companies or the mutual funds in India. Because if someone puts in a lump sum money into a mutual fund in the stock market of India. That is money they could have spent on travel in the shorter term, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
people have started really giving importance to these experiential things. We often say that at Veena World, you should celebrate life with your loved ones, make memories with your loved ones. And we are seeing that happen more and more. People are taking more vacations now than they used to before. People are valuing, as you call it, me time over different types of experiences. But that being said, the market is veering towards more service. If you aren't able to deliver the service, you may make money, revenue in the shorter term, but in the longer term, it's going to affect it badly. And one of the biggest things is an example that Sunila just gave, that in the European summers, if you don't have air conditioning, you might not get Indian travelers coming to your hotel because
yeah,
we
yeah,
just need air conditioning even in cold weather sometimes, right? So
yeah,
that's one thing. Another thing we are seeing is people are really valuing feedback. If your hotel, your attraction, your restaurant is not well rated on TripAdvisor or on Google, you might suffer. And that is why feedback becomes quite important. And it's very easy to get feedback today, right? That's why you are seeing more travel agents also
yeah,
asking people to give feedback all the time. You are asking us to give feedback. We are asking our travelers
yeah,
to give
yeah,
feedback. So that's becoming more important. And a third thing is there is huge competition between countries to get the traveler footprint. So Europe is competing with the US, Australia, Japan. Europe is competing with countries within itself. So Switzerland's
yeah,
competing
Yeah.
with France, France is competing
yeah,
with the UK. And for any country or region to succeed, it is very important that they are top of mind for a particular market like India. That means doing more campaigns digitally, offline, and just trying to convince people that why you should visit a particular country. Because if you only keep talking about the monuments or sightseeing places you have,
That's enough.
every country has that, right?
yeah,
Every
yeah,
city has that.
yeah,
But why should I really come? And
yeah,
there is this saying in India that wherever Bollywood travels, wherever cricketers travel,
yeah,
everyone travels too. So that is something that we have seen work in the Indian market, where if you do promotions of a country or a region with these celebrities, as we call it, you'll often see increase in footfall. So that's one. Talking about sustainable travel, talking
Yeah.
about responsible travel, people aren't valuing carbon footprint per se as something, because it's not something that we talk about out here, but people are realizing when they travel, they have to travel responsibly. So that includes reduced usage of plastic,
Yeah.
wanting to travel light, ensuring that there is like as less waste as they can have when they are traveling. So small things like that. But even airlines in India haven't been talking about carbon footprint. So the carbon footprint talk is more in Europe, in
Yeah.
Australia, New Zealand, in the US.
yeah,
But in India, responsible travel takes the avatar, which is different to just the carbon footprint, but more
yeah,
so ensuring that we protect the environment more than
yeah.
anything.
You know, I'm coming over to Delhi later this week, and I was just checking the weather on my app, and the weather is like the pollution. It's on 500, which is severe. It's like red. So I'm like, I have to buy all these masks before I go there. So yeah, but it's sustainability has become a big topic in
Yep.
sort of in
Europe.
Europe, right? So
Yeah.
there are markets that we work with, like Scandinavia, for example. The government is urging student travel to be more sustainable, so less flights. It's like something called flight shaming that happens in Scandinavia. If you take flights, you'd rather, take a train or a bicycle would be the best way, but you won't get far then. So, but that's it's an interesting topic. So I thought I'd ask the question. So
Awesome.
the next thing really wanted to ask Sunila was any niche experiences that you're seeing that people are sort of asking for a bit more so nowadays in comparison to before. Like
Yes,
say
there
something,
are.
yeah,
In
yeah,
fact,
yeah,
sometimes it's not even that they're asking for, you have to put it in front of them and then they like it, right? So it's not always that they come to you saying, I want to go and do
yeah,
this. But if you offer it to them, they really enjoy it. A few years ago, no one would have ever asked you that I want to go and sit in the thermal waters of Blue Lagoon in Iceland. But today, when you see the entire group is going there, 40 people are going and having a nice dip in the thermal waters as they relax and put the mud on their face or whatever. So wellness and I think post pandemic it has become really important.
Yeah.
They are looking for wellness facilities, and I know you are doing something along those lines too with Eartha. So I think that is something that has
Yeah.
really become important for people. So that is definitely one thing. The second Uma touched upon is, of course, the food and the local experiences.
Experiences.
So, on a recent trip to Italy, everybody enjoyed the local food in Italy. They just loved it. So they went on about how amazing, and which is so refreshing because till now I've only heard people say I had the best pav bhaji on top of Jungfrau and Titlis and all of that. But it's great to say that I had such amazing pizza in Italy that,
Yeah.
or whatever, pasta and other stuff. And that is again something which, and I think it's we have to give it to our travelers who are in all different age groups, and it may be the Gen Z and millennials influencing it, but even the older travelers enjoying it. So even the seniors, they are also very nicely participating in this whole thing, and they are enjoying that too. I think they've all become ready to experiment. So that is definitely again something that we've seen happen. Cruising has never really been extremely popular in India like the rest of the world, but that is again something where people are happy to come in. So when you travel in between Scandinavia, even when if it's a small ferry, or if you're doing a different cruise, like we had a cruise to go up to Longyearbyen and in Svalbard and see the polar bears, we had some 30 people happily ready to go and try and experiment this cruise. And the other thing is traveling in cold weather, which was something like years back. I remember a Europe tour would be what, 3 months, April, May,
Yeah.
June, and that's it.
June,
The
yeah, that was
season
it.
over. Can you imagine that? Like just working for 3 months for Europe, impossible. And then
Yeah.
gradually it extended till September. That, oh, okay, it's summer, but we can take it. Let's go until September. So the
Yeah.
season for traveling went up till September. And today we have tours. I think except January, we have a tour to Europe every month of the
You
year.
do.
So
Yeah.
people are ready to go in cold weather. They are ready to, walk in the snow, see different things, experience the cold like never before. So I think that is another thing that has really changed till then. People are looking for these niche experience. Like you said,
Mm.
the snow. If you live in a city like Mumbai, to experience a snowfall for the first time is magical. I mean, it's amazing when you're on top of a mountain and it snows. So people are looking at these kind of experiences too. Longer holidays is again something we've seen people taken, and post
Yeah.
pandemic, the holidays are getting longer. They want to be out longer. They want to see more and
Yeah.
newer areas. And the other thing we've noticed is they are liking to go back to the destination. So for someone who started traveling like 20, 30 years back, a lot has changed. So there are new attractions, newer things to do, and people are repeating travel as well. So there are quite a lot of different things. Of course, new destinations that they haven't visited, that they didn't hear of. Like Neil went to Georgia. Georgia is something that is really trending from India right now. And
Yeah.
what makes it really attractive is one, not many people have been there, and two, the airfares are good. It's short haul, so all of those things work as well. So yeah, new destinations, new experiences, new food experiences, newer time to travel, travel
Yeah.
in winter, winter in Europe. All of this is increasing.
And also, we've seen that there is a shift of where people are going in Europe because of global warming, where people are actually
Yeah.
going to cooler destinations now as well. So that's
Yeah.
quite an interesting insight. So I would love to have a discussion and then open a topic up about price and how important price is to the Indian market, right?
Not today.
All right, not today then. But just the headline is price is extremely, extremely important to the Indian market. So
Value for money.
value
Let's
for
say
money,
Yeah,
yeah.
value for
Yeah.
money.
It's not
Yes,
just
Exactly.
value for
price,
money.
Dylan. It's
Yeah,
No,
but I
value
think
it's
for
that
value
money.
for money.
There are
I
people
think
who will
that's
pay
yeah,
all kinds of
yeah,
for five
yeah,
stars and luxury, but they still want value for money. So
Yeah, but
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
for
us.
sure.
It's when we travel,
We do
we
it.
also look for value for money, right? So that goes, we all have the same genes, right? So it goes across the whole continent.
Okay, so this was a great, insightful meetup. Thank you guys for all the information that you shared with us, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to share all this information with everybody who's going to be watching the show. But there's one final question that I'd like to ask both of you. But let's do ladies first. So let's ask Sunila first. So what is currently exciting you the most about the future of travel?
I think when I see and hear people say that, this is my first tour, it just means to Europe, for example. They're not saying this is my only tour, and they are planning their holidays 4 or 5 years ahead. People
Yeah.
have started planning and they've started thinking of taking vacations, and I think that for me is most exciting because it just means they are going to be traveling, and we will all have to do some amazing work to ensure that they are traveling. So yeah,
Okay.
I think that's something I really like.
Okay, cool. And you, Neil? What's
Um,
exciting you?
I think because people, I would say I'd continue with Sunila's point, because people have started giving more importance
Yeah.
to travel. It just gives me joy that they are going to make more memories with their loved ones.
Yeah.
And of course, you have all of this talk of artificial intelligence and machine learning taking up our world all over. But the joy that you get just traveling with people, or the joy that we get whenever
Yeah.
you guys come to India and we have that dinner together, is something that AI can't take over.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
the fact that people have started giving these things more importance is something that is a layer above all of the superficial AI and ML talk that we hear on LinkedIn every single day.
Yeah.
So that's how I would put it.
Brilliant. Thank you
Agreed.
so much.
Agreed.
Any last comments, Uma? Would you like to
No,
say
just
anything?
yes, thank you so much for coming here, and thank you so much for making our first podcast so amazing. We really appreciate it.
Thank you,
Yeah,
guys.
thank you. Thank
Thank you
you
Thank
for
you.
for
having
having
us.
us.
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks, Anila. Thanks, Neil.
Thank you.
See you
Thanks for
Take
soon.
inviting
care.
us to
Bye,
be
Neil.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
Take
Sunila.
care.
yeah.
Bye.